Welcome to the Network Table Podcast. Here's your host, Luke Van Every.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Network Table Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Van Every, and we have a really special guest today. We're going to be talking about something that I really love, and that's profitability and how to enhance it. We have an amazing guest, another incredible networking contact of mine, and his name is Ethan Chazin. Chasing the dream, but don't take it from me. Ethan, what's going on, buddy?
Not much. Welcome, everybody. Luke, thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. Ethan, it's been really great getting to know you over the last couple of months. I know we met through networking, and you have such an incredible energy and passion for what you do. So tell everybody, what do you do and how do you help?
What do I do? $1 million question. I take, Luke, about 25 years of experience in the private sector, and I apply it to helping people pretty much unleash their untapped potential, whether it's one-on-one or group-based work, to help people find what they love and really unleash their performance by just getting in touch with what they're passionate about and finding their why.
Finding their why.
Yes.
I love it. So tell us how do you go about that?
So one of the things that I do is an organization may come to me at one of two stages of their organic growth. So they may be in a growth state and they say, you know what, we've plateaued or we're kind of stuck. We want to get to the next level, but we understand that to get there means we have to grow our people. That's where I'm brought in to look at the organization, and most often Luke gets to work on their culture. Or the more problematic second scenario is an organization at any stage of their life cycle says, you know what, we've got some issues. We've got some challenges. We don't know how to organically self-correct, and we know their business model's in jeopardy. And I think the last year and a half has really shined the light on those organizations saying, in order to do that, we have to look back at how we've treated our people and how we're going to treat our people. So in other words, Luke, I'm a culture transformation coach.
Culture transformation. I love that. One of the things I say when I'm asked, why did you leave the W-2 employee? Why did you leave the big company? I was like, because, man, I got tired of culture.
Yeah.
Culture is, I mean, we can put benefits in front of you all day. We can show you the way of sales and how much money to make. But if it sucks waking up, going to work every day, what do you want me to do about it?
And amen. And, you know, when I retell some of the stories about what over the years drove me to have your come to choose this moment where I decided 12 years ago, I'd go out on your own. I was working for a publishing company just outside of Washington, D.C. in Southern Maryland. And I literally, Luke, lived about a 3 to 4 minute drive from the office. And I would wake up and have those moments of, oh my goodness, I've got to go there again. And we all know what that does to you, just doing that day in, day out. Now multiply that over the years and over the decades. And unfortunately, that's where far too many people direct their careers, or allow their careers to be directed. So congratulations on going out on your own.
And so you've experienced it as well. Congratulations to me. I'll take it. So tell us, in the established company, what's the number one thing you see that needs to be changed in the culture, and why it's so difficult for that company to make that change?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. And just for the benefit of your audience, in terms of giving scope and clarity on how I came to this mission of mine, is early on in my consulting practice, I said, you know, there's something that's pissing me off. There's something that's really kind of sitting in the back of my gray matter. What is it about organizations that enable them to be either number one or two in their respective fields? And so I spent about 8 years looking into this, researching it. And I looked it over in about 230 countries, and I looked at over 5,000 organizations. I'm not just talking about big corporations, Luke. I'm talking about startups. I'm talking about government entities, nonprofits. And I said, what is it, if there's anything that is universal as far as a characteristic or quality, that are all highly profitable, highly successful organizations share. And here's what it didn't have anything to do with. It had nothing to do with country of incorporation. It had nothing to do with their management structure, nothing to do with their products or services. It had to do with one consistent, universal, fundamental characteristic, and that's this. And so that's, spending 8 years writing a book on it. When I say culture, I mean culture kills. And so that's what I do. I go into organizations that either want to build an amazing culture or they realize they're a toxic place to work and they're losing all their best talent. How do we fix that? Luke, don't leave us, Luke. So that's what I do.
It was too late by that point. 8 years. You spent 8 years writing that book?
Yeah. Well, yeah, for the better part of those 8 years researching, and then the writing speaks volumes to itself. I mean, there's a reason that companies like Google and Patagonia and Chobani, et cetera, that they get tens of thousands of resumes because they've built this amazing workplace culture, the reputation that they have, the brand of their organizations. Rising stars want to go work there. And guess what? People who are treated like garbage in other organizations, if they haven't left your firm yet, they're planning on it. You just have no idea of knowing because you've treated them so horribly. And that's what sometimes I'm brought in to do. And I do that mostly around human skills, professional skills, relationship development skills.
That's a beautiful thing. And the passion just oozes out of you. And I learned another thing. I'm always learning stuff when I talk to you. 8 years.
8 years. Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of it wrote itself, quite frankly. When you asked me my why, and everything that I do in my practice and my consulting is predicated on how I was treated over 25 years in corporate America. And basically, I institutionalize all of those in terms of here's what you don't do. So yeah, it was a somewhat cathartic and very painful introspection, but the research is pretty straightforward. There are organizations who do this. So for example, Ethisphere every year comes up with a list of hundreds of the top places to work. Those organizations are out there. Unfortunately, Luke, they're in the minority. Those organizations who treat their people in a way that creates lasting competitive advantage. And I'll tell you what else you said earlier, profitability.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. And look, I mean, my biggest challenge, other than getting an organization that's receptive to the kind of conversation that we may have, is that they say, this is warm, fuzzy, or how do you put your finger on the ROI of it? And I say, look, what are you talking about? We know from the science, we know from organizational behavior, the field of research is 70 years. 70 years post-World War II, we've looked at this. Organizations who treat their people a certain way, every metric, every conceivable, quantifiable measurement you look at says you're going to be more profitable when you treat your people. The only people who haven't gotten the memo, Luke, are the people who unfortunately are sitting atop the command control pyramid.
I'm trying to ask questions that don't
tip your hand.
Yeah, I got a couple questions I'll have to ask you on the side.
Okay.
So we're going to go back to that 25 years because I want to hear more about that. When you're starting this 8-year journey of research, at the beginning of it, do you know, hey, I'm going to write this book?
No. It was predicated on this philosophy of consultants are a dime a dozen, and unfortunately, most of the advice and counsel they give is god awful and misdirected. So it was more an effort for me to try and figure out what it is that I could use as a leverage to help organizations get from struggling, or as Jim Collins would say, good enough, to being exceptional. And so it was really kind of something that just organically stayed with me over my whole career. What is it about amazing organizations? What do they do? What's their secret sauce? And the answer is culture. However you want to define it, trumps everything.
All right. I'm not going to make you give away all of your information, but I'm going to make you give away a little.
Okay.
We'll use me as an example. Sole entrepreneur now. We got growth plans into year 2, year 3.
Mm-hmm.
What is the first thing I need to think about before I start hiring and building that culture?
Well, you're already living your culture. You live your culture, whether you have employees or not, every day. When I first met you, I think I mentioned to you that there was just something between us that just connected. And that's not just this kind of euphemism for you get me, I get you. It's your ability to espouse crystal clear what your vision is and what, as a result of where you see your business going, the mission of how you're going to get there, the what you do and who you do it for. But there's something else, the third piece. So you've got your vision, mission, but it's pretty straightforward. It's what are your values? You and I talked about being treated a certain way when we worked in that day job and got that W-2. We know how we were treated, right? So everything that we take into your business practice is predicated on your value system. And those are the three things: your vision, mission, your values. And then it's easy for you to figure out, and we've talked about this, who are the clients that you want to work with? Who are the partners, vendors, contractors you align with? You know, it's your vision, mission, values are your foundation in every relationship you have. And then when you start hiring your first, second, et cetera, employees, you've already built the culture. But if you don't know where you want your legacy to be, where you're ultimately taking this enterprise you're building, it's going to be hard to identify people who can fit into that and work really productively for you and achieve optimal performance, thus profitability.
I love it. That you gave away more than I was even asking for. I love it. So
It's a one-stop shop.
So Ethan, let's go back.
Mhm.
What were you doing before this for 25 years before you went on this journey?
In a
What
word.
what
In a word,
in a word, sure.
suffering.
So
So by discipline, my background is marketing. My undergraduate degree was advertising communications. Like an idiot, I went and got my master's degree, my MBA in marketing. I don't know if your audience knows this, but most organizations who are not what we'll call woke, they see marketing as a cost center, not an invaluable way to support your sales initiatives and build reputational brand.
oh man, we could spend another hour on just that conversation right there.
Yeah. So, you know, most of my background in the private sector was working in corporations like Dun and Bradstreet, Time Warner Cable, Reuters. I worked with small enterprises. But my last day job ended in 2008. I went out on my own and I never looked back.
Beautiful. When did you leave Time Warner Cable?
I was transitioned in precursor talks that they were having to a company called Comcast to become what is now Spectrum, where they did that go-to move all big corporations do, big company A and big company B. We're
Right.
going to merge. Let's make ourselves look very financially appealing.
So now I can narrow it down to when those companies started to become terrible customer service companies.
Well,
Everyone,
it wasn't
figured
just
out.
me.
It's Ethan's fault. He left. And that's why on Monday I was out of internet until 4:00. I don't care if you change, and you can change your name all you want, Comcast. You're still Comcast.
I won't look, Luke, you know, all seriousness aside. Yeah, I was actually not even responsible for their consumer business. I was responsible for doing the marketing to about 50,000 small to mid-sized businesses in the New York metro area. And one of the things that I did was, you understand, in order to be appealing when you provide services or products to your constituents, you have to make the message meaningful to them. You have to talk about what the pain is. And working in an organization that had a very homogenous, meaning white business owner from the Midwest mindset, and completely go off the reservation and develop marketing for a very diverse business owner population. That was a phenomenal experience for me, even though I left them in my dust, because it enables me to go out and customize what I do on a client by client basis, because there is no standard organization. It doesn't exist. Every organization is different. And that was one of the key messages I took away from the time I spent there.
100%.
Yeah.
Everything, it's all perspective. What was that one thing that broke the camel's back? What was that day? And after you answered that, what was the day that you just stood up and said, this is it? Did you have individuals out that you called on and said, this is what I want to go do?
Yeah.
To get reassurance. Did you have your centers of influence that you called and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do? Do you have my back?
Interestingly enough, I did. And their collective set of counsel was strongly in one camp, which was don't do it. Meaning
Wow.
Well, if you remember 2007, 2008, we were in the midst of a recession. The market is not conducive. It's not a good time. But I think at some point you ask yourself, and every 20-year-old coming out of college or 50-year-old who goes into entrepreneurial pursuits has the same conversation with himself. I've gathered as much feedback from the people who are my coaches, mentors, but now inside me internally, where's my heart pulling me? And I knew all the risks. I really kind of received a broad, deep set of insight from people who I respected. But I said, you know what? And that also came from family members and very close friends. They're not me. And I understood the risks. My eyes were wide open going in. But that trigger moment for me was 9/11. And the trigger moment for me at 9/11 was when I worked for a financial news reporting global concern. And the president of the company, the company's based in London, refused to, first of all, declare it a terrorist act and refused to come back to the United States. I was supposed to be there. My client was Cantor Fitzgerald. A day or two before, I changed my mind and went to a training retreat in New York City. And so I wasn't there. And we all have those stories. But that to me was the epitome of not wasting another day, blood, sweat, and peer equity invested in an organization that didn't share my values or my moral compass. And the rest, they say, is history.
It's history. And now it's an incredible book that you can all go read that history.
Yeah.
That's I love that, right? It's totally different than what my center of influence said, right? My business center of influence was like, yeah, we got your back. Let's do it. It's your time.
Right.
It's your time. My family, I didn't ask. I knew what that conversation
You knew the outcome of that conversation.
I knew what that conversation was going to be. It was going to be doubt. It was going to be fear. It was going to be, are you sure? It was going to be no reassurance. And at the point, I think I'd already made up my mind, like it was happening. And I needed the reassurance that one person could have been like, yes, this is a great idea, go. And I would have been good. I knew if I went to the family that isn't in this, that aren't entrepreneurs, that are not in the industry that we work in, and there was going to be question marks. And because it's my family, it was going to make me question as well.
Right. And that's so eloquent, because we know that the people who are around us, the analogy, I use as you kind of walk through your decision-making process that every entrepreneur goes through, whether it's straight out of school or you're making a career change, however many years you've worked previously. The analogy is Game of Thrones, right? It's the castle. And you have to defend your castle, meaning your mindset, as you go into invading the foreign army. So, right, your friends and family are going to kill you with love. They're going to be the archers at the top with the heated arrows. They have the heated oil. They have the drawbridge. They're trying to keep you in. They're trying to keep you in out of love. No, it's it's fear on your behalf. But the thing is, nobody other than you has your vested self-interest in terms of what your long-term plans are, whether it's career transition in corporate America, going to a nonprofit, or starting your own business, right? Nobody has heightened sense of expectations for your career more than you do. Do I wish, in hindsight, being 2020, that I had a robust list of clients, I had money coming in that I could just switch from day job to consulting, that I had significant financial wherewithal to do this? Of course.
Sure.
Do I wish we weren't in a freaking recession? Sure.
But
my North Star shine the light of day and directed me. And I tell all my students, I've taught or teach in 10 colleges and universities, graduate, undergraduate, same thing. Hey, Professor Chazin, do you regret moving out of where you are? I said, well, my worst day on my own, is better than my best day in corporate America.
Nice.
So, and that's actually when I don't know if you and I have talked about this. I'm a business coach with the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. And look, I've taught hundreds of entrepreneurs and small business owners. They'll say the same thing that you and I just said. They'll say, no looking back. It's scary as all heck.
Sure.
You know, you're on that roller coaster of emotional stability, but also financial wherewithal. But hey, guess what? That paycheck that everybody says is safe and secure, there's no such thing you and I know as job security anymore. Gone. The other thing is that paycheck also has another phrase I use in my book. It's called indentured servitude.
Say it again, so everybody can hear you.
The paycheck is built in indentured servitude. It is one of the shackles. And I'll tell you what, when I talk about fixing organizational cultures, when I do an audit where they have me come in and do a view of the landscape, one of the first things I'll do is I'll survey their employees across all the functional areas and all levels. And then I'll talk to the senior, and I use this term lightly, leadership team, because they're managers, not leaders. And I'll say, what do you think it is that you do for your people that keeps them here? And they'll say, we pay them. Yeah. That false assumption that people on the top have that people stay with you for pay. We know, decades of research, especially younger millennials and Gen Zs, compensation is actually one of the lower level considerations. And we could talk all day. We could riff off of what millennials look for and what Gen Zs want. Most organizations have not gotten the memo because they're boomers and matures and they don't get it.
You said it, not me.
Of course I did. But that's one of the perks of being out on your own is you get, especially what I do for a living, I'm basically a generational translator. Being a Gen Xer, born between 1964 and 1980, I get to talk boomer speak, mature speak, and translate that into millennial and Gen Z. And look, more seriously, what we're seeing at the light at the end of the tunnel of a global pandemic is we've lost 670,000 Americans. And I cannot tell you, Luke, if I had $1 for every time a business owner or an executive or an economist said, well, there's a labor shortage. Are you kidding me? There's no labor shortage. Now, if you want to use the phrase a war on talent, okay, I'll give you that. But guess what? That war was waged as we turn the clock to 2000. There's no longer a war on talent. The best organizations that have created the most amazing cultures and treated their people the best, they're just looking back at the littered earth, the scorched earth of all their competitors who have all the bodies of failed businesses. Because the only businesses that are going to be around years ago started becoming these workplaces that create amazing cultures. And everybody else, they're dead. They just don't know it yet. And if you want proof, ask yourself what it sounds like when you say, oh no, we're not going out of business. We're too big to fail.
I don't need proof. And,
exactly.
And I had 5 restaurants in 2008 and 9 and 10. We didn't lose a single employee.
Mm-hmm.
At 5 restaurants. There was no,
Why?
People weren't showing up. There was no business. There was no catering. There was no walk-in traffic. There was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't lose a single employee.
Yeah.
Because we did everything we had to make sure that they got paid and their families were taken care of. And we band together and said, hey, we're gonna get through this together as a family. I think in 7 years in the hospitality restaurant industry, one of the most highest turnover industries on the planet, I think I fired one person, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think it was because he was stealing. I caught him stealing cash, and I think you kind of have to fire somebody when they steal cash. Other than that, I didn't lose people because we took care of them.
Yeah. And that's amen. And that's what gets me so motivated when I get up every day doing this thing that I'm truly blessed that I get to do, is because first of all, I get to pick and choose the organizations who understand this stuff viscerally and also invest in it. They put their money where their mouth is. They don't say, by the way, I'll tell you how I know when somebody is full of BS and I can't work with them. There are certain white flags, and you might laugh. If they say, our people are our greatest asset, done. Done. Your
Done?
people, I tap out. I push you away from the table. Why? Because an asset is a photocopier with limbs. An asset is not a human being. It's demeaning to your people. It also shows you really don't understand that it's not your clients that keep you in business. Guess what? It's really not. I don't care. If you're a real estate firm, accounting agency, I don't care. It's your people and those people who you pay to interact with your customers. So yeah, that's one flag. The other is if they say, as you did, we're a family. If you're a family, then my question is, do you hire people from day one who you bring in who share your values? And that's talent acquisition that's meaningful, that leads to true talent retention. Yeah, we could talk about a human capital audit. We go into your organization with you have 5 people or 50,000, and I do this for a living. I spot literally in a minute, in a matter of minutes. There's just far too much going on that can't be salvaged, or we can fix it, but you have to be willing. As an organization, you have to be willing to rethink everything. Guess what? We just survived the global pandemic, and we may be facing down another massive interference to our economy. So
I feel like
buckle up.
I feel like right now is the time to reevaluate everything.
Why?
Everything.
Why?
Because everything changed anyway.
Right.
Everything changed anyway. You were forced into changing out of sitting next to people 9 to 5 every single day.
Yeah.
It was a complete overhaul of the way we did business. Complete overall, everyone. It didn't affect one industry, one time, one state, everyone. So why would you not sit right now and say, Ethan, help? Because now's the time.
Right. So, and absolutely, it's a perfect opportunity, but again, it requires certain things that many organizations.
Of course.
And I know that the way you phrased it was rhetorical, but you and I both know, because we've talked about this a lot, that it requires a certain set of characteristics or attributes that most senior folks don't possess. So unfortunately, the 21st century American business enterprise is still focused on shareholder value, not stakeholder value. So they're still focused on, we make our weeks, we make our months. We make our months, we make our quarters. Guess what? You do 4 of those financially, you made your year. So they're focused on the status quo. But you just said it, the world went like this. There's no status quo. So instead, now would be a really good time to talk about stakeholder value. So instead of maximizing profits, think about ethics, morality, doing good. I mean, when I teach leadership, we call this probity, or exhibiting a moral compass in your organizational behavior in terms of how you treat people. It's not good enough. I mean, some of these companies, they say, oh, social corporate responsibility. This isn't a PR ploy. And I spent my career previously in PR and marketing and advertising. This is about treating your people with civility and respect, probity, a moral compass, focusing on not destroying the planet. And instead of profits, it's focused on the planet. I mean, it's just, we could talk about this all day, but that's
Ethan, you and I could talk about anything all day. That's
right. I just want to keep it reined in, because for purposes of organizations that are saying, I hear everything you're saying, but right now I have a business. And as you said, my business world has been thrown upside down. And what do I do? But you already
and lay it out in the right way.
But you already said it. It's an opportune time to say, if it ain't broke, break it. What got us here is not going to get us to the next level. And if when in doubt, you have an amazing tool. If you have employees, they're called your workers. Either you have them on the assembly line, turning Rosie Riveter, or you're doing everything in your power to recognize, reward, solicit their ideas, put them in self-directed teams, coach and mentor. This is the stuff we do all the time, but guess what? Most organizations haven't gotten the memo from Ethan and Luke.
I love it. So from a client standpoint, and you
Yes.
can say, would you rather start with a company that is about to take off, startup funding, about to grow it, or would you rather go into an establish and fix?
I mean, any consultant who's honest with you would say, I'd rather go in earlier on because it's an opportunity to grow with them and become more of a strategic partner. But I'd say that the honest answer for me is it depends. So if the organization is early on in the organic growth cycle, if they have a really cool either owner and or maybe 2 or 3 partners and they're really focused the right way, that's a great journey to kind of help be the wind in their sails. But if it's an organization that's achieved the measure of success, they've grown, they're at a kind of what we call a tipping scale moment, that almost is equally energizing for me because it's an opportunity to tip the pendulum or have the greatest impact on pushing them up. So it really depends on the engagement. I have one organization that I was hired to work with for a year. They're New Jersey's largest federal credit union. They needed to have a diversity and belonging initiative so that they could look like their workers, their clients. That was fun, but they had already been around for decades. There's another organization, a small organization in New York City I'm working with, which is kind of a really cool technology company. And that's kind of exciting because they already are looking at companies like Zappos and Zynga and emulating best culture models. So that's different, but yeah.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Ethan, I have so many questions going through, but if we want to read your book, which I want a copy, but I will only take one that is signed. We've already had this conversation. I want mine signed.
Well, I need your mailing address, which you can send me offline. And then absolutely, you got it. I'll expedite it. Certified mail next day receipt.
Ethan, it's always just an incredible time speaking with you. Before we sign off, give us one piece of advice for guys and gals and just like me who are at that point where they're like, do I do it or do I not? What's your one piece of advice out there to individuals that are thinking about going out on their own, no matter what it is they're going to do? What would one piece of advice be?
Oh man, that's easy. Oh, you want me to tell you it?
Yeah, I want you to tell it.
Just do it. It's never going to be an ideal set of circumstances. You're never going to have the right marketplace, the right environment. You're never going to have the right alignment of resources. The stars are not always going to collide, but I'll tell you, you said earlier how I knew it wasn't that one moment that pushed me out. I knew for years this is what I was going to do. I just didn't read the tea leaves because I was always doing things on the side, extracurriculars, out of work. I was doing things in my community to give me the intrinsic motivation, the internal passion reward, doing things that had nothing to do with the day job. So for those of you who are on the fence and questioning, you already know what the decision is. And as many coaches and mentors as you can ask and people for input, you know what the decision is going to be. And for most people, I say do it. Maybe not now, but do it. Do it. Especially those people who are early enough in their careers where you have the benefit of time where you can course correct. You know, and again, maybe just talk to an expert, whether it's me or somebody else who's not our first rodeo. Get somebody who's gone through the process, especially somebody who has done what you want to do in the industry that you're thinking about. Ideally, talk to several, but just do it.
Well, you want my opinion? Talk
No.
to Ethan.
Oh, yes, I do. If that's it. Yeah, look, I mean, the chazinGroup.com. If anybody wants to reach out to me, this is what, you know what, you asked earlier, this is what I love to do. And to the extent that I can
obvious.
well, yeah, but Most
it
people,
would not be so obvious if you sucked at it. So
well, and most people spend their careers doing what they shouldn't be doing. For whatever the reason is, at one point it's, well, that's what my parents wanted, or I'm engaged, or my first child, or the mortgage. And we just keep setting up those obstacles for ourselves till it becomes insurmountable. And you say, whatever your age is, I can't. And God help you. Don't do that. Don't settle. Life's too short. And my one piece of advice on nobody's, well, assume you don't believe in reincarnation. On nobody's tombstone will it say, "Here lies Luke or Ethan. He wished he could have worked more hours."
No, absolutely not. Ethan, where do we follow you? How do we find your book? And how do we contact you?
Amazon or Barnes and Noble. But that aside, best way is to just send me an email at ethan@thechazingroup.com or hit me up through my website, thechazingroup.com. I'd love to talk to anybody and everybody about this stuff because this is life.
The Chazin Group, helping you chasing the green.
When you're ready to chase the green or when you're ready to go chasing the dream.
Ethan, always a pleasure, my friend. I look forward to talking again soon.
Absolutely, Luke. Take care. And thank you for having me.
Always.
For more information, please visit truecomparepeo.com.